The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Roadshow Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're here at Reno's East in East Lansing, as able to land, navigate a gorgeous stretch of interstate. Yeah, I just said that, a gorgeous stretch of interstate with all sorts of fall foliage, and found my way here. Just to my left is our dear friend, the great Jack Ebling. He's doing his show, and he may have a Tom Izzo sighting. So I may be getting to sit next to Tom Izzo and taunt my family. Great to be with you as we're here for Nebraska-Michigan State. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and we're powered by Cornhead Lager. And all of that helps, of course, with NIL and the 1890 initiative. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240 to dial us up and get in touch, 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. Lot to get to today. There's an eruption and angry Big Ten coaches. Some thoughts on that. Some comments from Matt Rhule. The latest in the GB Rewind we'll dive into. Matt Rhule, the master of the locker room yet again. And we'll react to Bob Knight. We had that news for you yesterday with the legendary coach's passing. So we'll have some thoughts on that. There's a lot of Spartan fans behind me gathering. The interim coach, Coach Barnett, is going to be here as soon as we're done. The Spartan Coaches Show emanates from Reno's East. Our coach, Gary Barnett, will be with us in hour two. Brandon Vogel in about 15 minutes. And Tim Brando, he is calling the game with Spencer Tillman on FS1 Saturday. Tim Brando going to join us at 5 o'clock Central. Mr. Brando also a long and rich history with Bob Knight. So we'll 1-2 punch that. Elijah, how we shaking? What's going on, man? You locked in. Big shout out to Dion. He was first in line here to say what's up.
I am doing well. While we're shouting out the stream listeners here, shout out to Dion. Also, big shout out to Brennan. He sent me this sweet hat. It just came in the mail today. See that? I see it. I have a couple of hats Brennan got us from the Black Hills. Oh, yeah.
And I sold one to Junior. Actually, no, I didn't sell one to Junior. I let Junior wear one at Lazari's when he goes to work. So that's pretty awesome. Can watch the show. You're encouraged to check us out via the stream and can comment that way. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Also on Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Both ways can check us out. But tell you what, man, flew out of Lincoln, landed in the home of Western Michigan, made the hour trip east on Interstate 96, and it's just beautiful. This whole place is forest with an interstate stuck in the middle. And I mean, you know how many times we've driven out to Colorado, the both of us, all of us in the state of Nebraska? And what happens? Yeah, God love this state of Nebraska. It's my favorite. I'll live and die here. But you endure the interstate, okay, until you get to the Panhandle and up by Scotts Bluff.
Oh, Eastern Colorado is worse than Nebraska. Let's make that clear. That
Eastern Colorado
high
at least
are gross.
Eastern Colorado at least has chops.
Okay, yeah, I follow you.
Right? I see you in Rays.
Well, that helps you if you're in the passenger seat. That doesn't help you if you're driving, Schmidty.
No, exactly. And don't do shop stops. It's illegal in Nebraska's. There's our PSA.
Well, it's illegal to bring it back. It's not illegal to stop over there. Just
right. Thank you. Clarification. But the point is this. It was beautiful. Got stopped in at the Graduate. We're live from the Graduate tomorrow in East Lansing. And I took this little neighborhood route that's 3 minutes from the hotel to Reno's East, pretty legendary sports bar in East Lansing. And I mean, it's like I'm driving through Dundee. It's all these beautiful cottages, the legendary Dundee region in Omaha or the country club area in Lincoln. Both places remind me of one another, kind of. So that's what I got to kind of weave through. And then, boom, I'm at a sports bar. And I'm right next to the Golden Tee machine. I mean, it's fantastic to be here. I've got some Red Bull, sugar-free, injected into my veins. So we're ready to go. 489-1240 numbers to get in. But we'll dive into a lot of things today. And Gary Barnett will have comments on Harbaugh and of course, Bob Knight. So that is a couple of things. But it is Nebraska. It is Michigan State. And, fumbles are going to be the key Saturday. Michigan State and their fumbles, Nebraska and their fumbles. Coach Rhule dove into it today as he met with the media. Elijah, it's so simple, it's so easy, and it's so true when we talk about how and why things go okay Saturday. Talked to Coach McBride. I was like, you're not kidding about the state of Michigan, Coach, because he lives here. And he's like, yeah, it's like a giant forest. It's great. And I'm talking to Coach McBride this afternoon, and he's like, if we lose, don't call me. He's like, don't call me. I was on a heater Monday, and I'll come in on a heater this Monday for Maryland week if Nebraska doesn't keep this win streak going.
It's funny to me how Midwestern you sound of just going to another state that isn't plains and being like, it's so beautiful here. There's forest around. That's a lot of the country compared to the rest of Nebraska.
I know.
That's most of the eastern seaboard. We're just the ones that are stuck in the middle. And don't get me wrong, I love Nebraska. It's just so funny.
We're stuck in the good life. We're stuck in the good life.
And it's just so funny for me to hear you be like, there's forests around, because that's what most of the country gets. We're the weird ones.
No, I know. And listen, but it's beautiful. I love the fall. I love the colors. We're landing, and there's 7 or 8 golf courses. I'm like foaming at the mouth with foliage all around. It looked incredible. Back to football. Here's Matt Rhule. Fumbles are the word of the day. Fumbles and who does them and who recovers them on Saturday. Matt Rhule weighed in. It sounds like a more attention to detail, and that's kind of hard for me to spit out because Rhule and his staff are a high-level attention to detail guys. But here's Coach Rhule as he talked a little bit about this week's prep.
I hate to say this because it's embarrassing to say, but we coached it better. We sat down as a staff on Sunday and went through every single fumble, why they're happening, what are the commonalities. A lot of them have been on, just the center quarterback exchange, and but why they're happening, what can we do better, and then we just created drills based upon our body of work to help us. And so we do ball security every day, but the results weren't showing that we do ball security every day. So to me, you don't change, you do things better. But if you do things better and it's still not showing up, then you have to change something. So we just changed the impact of the way we, the drills that we're doing. And I hope it shows up this Saturday. Sometimes they don't show up right away. Sometimes it takes a couple weeks. But I feel good about our process this week that we really put our guys in a position to be successful. Because if we're having this many fumbles, if we're leading the nation in fumbles, then I, as the head coach, am not doing my job. Because no one wants to fumble. They're not careless fumbles. So we have to improve that.
That is Matt Rhule on fumbles, quarterback, running back. I mean, how many times have we said it this year, Elijah? As well as Emmett Johnson has emerged carrying the football, as well as that new offensive line or newer offensive line played, you still have an athlete in Anthony Grant that could be a difference maker. You still have a quarterback that is an asset against defenses because Nebraska is a quarterback run offense. If you can get both guys to hang on to the football, good things can happen. And you can absolutely sting this secondary and everybody else on your schedule with how and when you want to throw the football.
Yeah, and to get back to that comment in particular, it was refreshing. And it reminds me of a quote from Bo Pelini. I think it was his first year on the job here at Nebraska.
Finger or thumb?
There it is, following that Missouri loss. I remember it was the Missouri loss. I can't remember. I think it was 2008. I could be wrong on that, but it was
That was Chase Daniel, the booger eater. He's still in the NFL, by the way.
Yeah, and Bo Pelini gets up post game talking to the media and says, "I'm not going to point the finger. I'm going to point the thumb." And it's Matt Rhule doing the same because there's been some finger pointing with the fumbling issue. I mean, you've heard it with Anthony Grant. Well, he's not going to be on the field if he's going to fumble. I mean, then Harper goes out and fumbles, and the accountability kind of goes away. It's just been an issue all year long where you haven't heard Matt Rhule say, you know what, this is my fault. And what that does, pointing the thumb instead of the finger, is it takes a weight off of those players' shoulders. Anthony Grant, Heinrich Harburg, anyone who's had a fumbling issue, Bullock on punt returns, all these guys that have had fumbling issues this year, by going up in front of the media and pointing the thumb. And we've talked about it this year, how Matt Rhule uses the media to send messages to his teams, as a lot of coaches do. Whenever you get up there and you say, you know what, this has got to be my fault because when it's a persistent issue, clearly we're not coaching something right, it takes the pressure off of your players in that. Because you know what happens if they fumble on Saturday? Matt Rhule has already said it. It's my fault because I clearly didn't coach you well enough so that you don't go out and fumble. It just takes a pressure off the guys, and sometimes that's all you need. Whenever you're focusing on, you know what, I can't fumble this football. I can't fumble this football. I can't fumble this football. It takes away some of your freedom as a ball carrier to go out and play the way that you do. Whenever you're thinking about it, whenever you're hyper-focused on it, sometimes it becomes even worse. So by Matt Rhule getting up in front of the media and pointing that thumb, A, it's like showing maturity from your head coach, but B, I think it's tactical in that Matt Rhule is saying, you know what, I'm going to pull out one final card because these guys could keep on fumbling. I'm going to put it on myself. I'm going to coach them differently at practice this week. And if there are issues on Saturday, everyone in Nebraska will know I am pointing the thumb as opposed to pointing the finger. It's not on the guys, it's on me.
No, and at this point in the year, as you get into November, we talked about a November to remember for Nebraska, allegedly. They got that opportunity. That's wonderful, but you know, how do you close? We'll get into a grisly November a year from now as we talk about the 2024 schedule dropping. Before we do that, and we'll have a little more time, we'll talk with Brandon Vogel in a couple of minutes from Counter Read on just what Nebraska's schedule looks like and how fun and fugly it can be in 2024. If you're playing good football and you have a monster close, awesome. Are you built for it? You better be. Let's hear from Coach Rhule, though. A big thing has been the Big Ten coaches' reaction. If you go off Stuart Mandel and Nicole Auerbach's reporting, you've got 13 coaches pissed at the commissioner that he's not doing anything about this. He's really reluctant to do anything. And if you're Tony Petitti, you got to answer to Fox, baby. Right, wrong, indifferent, don't like the answer. It's the way of the world. You know, they're already trying to get things fixed after the Kevin Warren COVID season where Fox was ticked off about championship games and rescheduling. And by the way, games lost. You lost some, and the world lost a lot, don't get me wrong. But the Big Ten Conference like, yeah, we need a refund before we move forward and sign this new $1 billion deal. But Matt Rhule was asked, he was on with Andy Staples regarding the coaches meeting. Here's a little bit about what Rhule had to say from Staples' podcast.
Yeah, I think it was a chance for everybody just to kind of talk about, you know, how they felt, how they were impacted. Obviously, Tony Petitti, I think, is a wonderful commissioner, and you know, I'll keep all the comments in house. But I think a lot of people's lives, livelihoods, jobs, their seasons, players' health. I mean, all kinds of things have been impacted by this, and so it was an opportunity, really, for all of us for the first time, just to kind of see what's going and talk about it, like we talk about everything really as coaches. I think the Big Ten does a great job of having regular coaches calls. This one was just specific to that incident.
So that is a very diplomatic, here's the fact that there was a meeting. I'm not going to get too deep into what was said in meeting, but it sounds like Harbaugh was in on the call and then got told to go to his room. And then it was no holds barred, Royal Rumble. Everyone gets out the old whooping stick on Harbaugh for what's gone on. Coaches have met, ADs are meeting or are going to meet. And the thing that's going to be the domino if they move forward on this is if the presidents meet. If the bow tie crowd weighs in on this and swiftly wants some reaction, that's fine. Petitti's got to keep Fox happy. And that's the long and short of it. And don't kid yourself. Cheating or not, they've got better athletes than 90% of the Big Ten, so they're going to win those games anyway. It's the Penn States and the Ohio States that are really, really ticked off, understandably so. You're going to watch to see Michigan lose in the Big Ten championship game if they get there. You're going to watch to see if Michigan loses in the college football playoff again. And you're going to watch to see if Harbaugh Army crawls his way off to the NFL at the end of the season. You're not going to do anything right now. And we'll have some more thoughts on that. Dion, you're right. You got to have rules. And you can selectively enforce them because Michigan's been above the law for a long time. Just ask them. Brandon Vogel coming up. Hail Varsity on the road at Reno's East in East Lansing.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out, Hail Varsity Radio Road Show Thursday. We are up in Spartan country, East Lansing, Reno's East, the first of a trifecta of road shows. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Can watch the show as we stream here from Reno's East. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Can read great Husker commentary and content with Brandon Vogel and Aaron Sorensen each week. Counterread.com at Brandon L. Vogel joins us. I am wondering if there's going to be an Izzo sighting at this table. Elijah, I will ask him if you want to virtually arm wrestle him or not. Brandon Vogel is hunkered down in the football desk. Vogues, it's Spartans, Huskers, which means there's going to be drama. How are you?
I'm well. Since you're on site, I'm interested in a scene report. How are the vibes in East Lansing?
Well, there's a lot of trees. Let me tell you what, Vogues. A lot of trees in East Lansing.
Elijah's giving me crap because I was just like, wow, this part of the country is really cool. I've been to Detroit, but it was old Tiger Stadium. And I've been to the Detroit airport. I have not ventured beyond breezing through Ann Arbor on the way to South Bend with Cranack almost 25 years ago. And let's just say a lot of that trip isn't we can't remember it. So it's what it is. But no, I'm driving the interstate east to get to East Lansing, and it's gorgeous in the fall. And you and I both love Nebraska. We're from Nebraska, and it's just not as scenic, shall we say, when you drive west or east. It's beautiful to us, but it's just not the same typography. Is that delicate enough?
Oh, I mean, I think it's delicate enough, and I think it's totally fair. Like, it took me a long time growing up in the northwest corner of the state to like understand the beauty of like the plains and the sandhills.
Yeah, sandhills is great.
You know, and but to that point, you know, I live in a place that is like that now. When you live in a place that is heavily forested, you're like, oh wow, like this is easy to understand. It looks amazing. You know, it's not something that takes you, in my case, 20 years to appreciate, which, you know, both have their merits. Yeah, trees are always good. Elijah, point Schmidty on this one.
Well, I think the beauty to Nebraska, which maybe takes some time as you kind of laid out, is there is beauty in the openness, the space that there is in Nebraska. That, you know what, you look over the sandhills, and you can just see, I mean, it's as far as the eye can see. There's no trees to block your vision. It's just a beautiful landscape that feels like there's nothing there to somebody from the outside, somebody who grew up in, say, Michigan or down south where there are a lot of trees. but there is beauty in just how much space and openness there is in Nebraska, and it takes some getting used to, but I really do appreciate the beauty of that.
I'm going to bring this to football now. Is Nebraska's offense a lot like the state's topography? Is there beauty in this offense?
Can I see Saturday before answering that question? I mean, it's definitely that. I think what you said there, Elijah, is well put. Chris has been in Michigan since today and been through a couple of times before. And it's easy for the person who's like just dropping in for 3 days to be like, oh, look at all these trees. The colors are changing. This is amazing. It's the Washington offense of landscapes at the moment. Nebraska, anybody who drives through Nebraska, their first reaction will be, it's boring. Like there's nothing to see. But to Elijah's point, as you kind of be like, well, this is unique in its own right. Like, yeah, there's not gorgeous mountains or a beach or a ton of trees, but it's unique because of that. Maybe we can get there with Nebraska's offense. At this point, it still feels really subsistence to me, which also ties in with Nebraska. They're doing what they have to do. And I think this coaching staff deserves a ton of credit given the injuries on offense for finding a way to, one, stick with the run, even though writing about this for tomorrow at counterread.com. Nebraska leads the conference in rushing. Does it feel like they lead the conference in rushing? No. Like they've had two 100-yard rushers this season, and they were both in the same game, Harburg and Grant against Louisiana Tech. But they've stuck with it. They hit big plays in the passing game, even though they don't throw all that often. So, they're finding a way to make it work. And that feels pretty Nebraskan, quote unquote, to me.
Brandon Vogel is with us, Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here at Reno's East. We're in East Lansing for a big weekend, a potential bowl berth weekend for Nebraska. Michigan State trying to stop a 6-game skid. Vogues, what's really cool, and you've focused in on this a lot in your coverage in Nebraska, but efficiency is so key in football, but it's so key in the Big Ten. Nebraska's running the football efficiently for the most part. They were better, at least last week, on first down runs. But when it comes to their yards per attempt and when they do throw it, I mean, the shot plays that Satterfield's dialed up, let's give the guy a little credit for that because he's called them. They've not always executed them, but he's really good from a timing standpoint, I think, and knowing when to spin the wheel.
Yeah, in the passing game in particular, we've seen some missed plays that were there to be made, and I think that's understandable. With a first-year starter at quarterback over this middle third of the season. That said, given the injuries, I think on offense, Nebraska's having to scheme a lot of what it's got. And over the past 2 games, we've seen them hit long, real long touchdowns in the passing game off of basically what are constraint plays, the plays that you run once you notice the defense is kind of cheating up against what you do in the run game. So that's a credit to the staff and to Harburg for making throws and for 2 young receivers for making those catches. So that's kind of, it's chocolate and peanut butter, using the run to set up the pass. It's existed in football for a long time. And for whatever we want to say about Nebraska's offense, they're showing an ability to at least do that. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be 5-3 right now. I mean, to be quite honest, it's a narrow path to walk for them offensively. The defense provides them a lot of opportunities. But you've lost a ton of players there, and you're still in the first year of a new scheme. So they've got to be pretty. it sounds strange, but you've got to be pretty perfect to even get to where Nebraska's been at, I think, in terms of the record and the offense's contribution to that.
Braden, with the long-term vision for Nebraska's offense, we've been doing some weird analogies here this segment, so I'm going to go back to another one. This week alone, I've already heard All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey 3 different times. She can keep on coming back to it year after year. It keeps on making her money year after year. If Nebraska's offense is Mariah Carey, is there anything in their offense this year that you think is All I Want for Christmas Is You, something that Marcus Satterfield and Matt Rhule will come back to year after year? Or do you think this is just a throwaway year? They're doing what they can with the offense this year, and they're going to figure out something new next year?
I think their devotion to running the football and trying to control the clock that way is probably our Mariah Carey here. In a season or two down the road, you think about what that could look like with some health at running back, because I do think Nebraska has the running backs that it wants and needs to run that type of approach. Your top 2 just got injured. So what are you going to do about that? And by the way, Emmett Johnson has been really efficient with a pair of 70-yard games on, I think, 12 or fewer carries both times. So that's encouraging. At wide receiver, I'm not saying you need a talent upgrade, but you need your top talent to be there. So look at it from that perspective, even assuming like maybe we get 2 seasons down the road and Harburg is still the quarterback. Like, what's that look like with a little bit more of developed wide receiver talent? You get some better injury luck at at running back. And, I guess the wild card here is the offensive line, but all of a sudden, like, some of the stuff that they're doing right now looks a lot better just with players who are doing it for the second or third year. And if you have your kind of 1 deep, instead of being 2.5 spots down on your 2 deep in a lot of spots.
Brendan Vogel with us, counterread.com at Brandon L. Vogel. And Vogues, what are you focused in on Saturday? Do you believe that Nebraska can get it done Saturday to get that streak put out, that wretched streak of being the program in college football that's not been to a bowl?
Yeah, I think they've got a good shot. I think Michigan State's a little bit more dangerous than probably they're given credit for. In some ways, I wonder if you're Nebraska in this spot, if you wouldn't have rather the Spartans got one of those games where they led, these past 2 weeks, where they led for a bit, and it looked like they were going to. Like, I just look at Michigan State. They've lost 6 in a row. They haven't won since Tucker was fired, and that seems a little bit unlucky or unlikely to me. Like, they're better than that, and defensively they can still do some things. They do a really good job of limiting big plays, particularly against the run. Offensively, they've shuffled through quarterbacks. They've lost a handful of running backs. It's a pretty mixed bag there, but that's the case for Nebraska too. So I expect this to be a pretty close game again if it plays out to form, and you get in a close game, anything can kind of happen.
Brandon Vogel with us. Vogues will check in on Saturday with the weekend edition from Spartan Stadium. I will shoot you some pictures of all the foliage, you and Elijah.
I'll be there by tomorrow. Beauty. Thank you.
That's true. Vogues, appreciate you jumping on and making time. Good to spend a few minutes.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read. Hail Varsity on the road a Thursday here in East Lansing at Reno's East.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmidty.
Schmidty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at your road show Thursday. We're here in East Lansing, already up here for Nebraska-Michigan State. 489-1240 to get in. Can also comment in the StreamYard. Can join that conversation. A lot of you have already gotten in. We'll get to more of the comments. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel. We're here at Reno's East, really legendary bar. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from campus. We're at the Graduate Hotel tomorrow. And then we are at Spartan Stadium for the weekend edition of Hail Varsity. And then for a real red reaction from the stadium, Elijah Herbel is going to be jumping in the family truckster and making his way up tomorrow. So he'll maybe, possibly get up here by hour 2.
Unlikely, but we'll see.
Unlikely, but he'll be around for Saturday for sure. Reminder about your friends at Dyer Law for personal injury representation. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the team at Dyer Law to provide you with a helping hand when you need it. No matter what you're dealing with, call Dyer Law and the team today at 402-393-7529 or visit Dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your injury claim. Dyer.law, that's Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. So we'll have a little bit more thoughts on the schedule. Nebraska 2024, that dropped today. We'll have plenty of takes on the Big Ten coaches going pinata on Jim Harbaugh, not in print or audio anywhere, just to feel, based on some reporting by The Athletic. And what would you do as commissioner if you're Tony Petitti? You're getting bags of cash thrown at you by Fox. Fox wants Michigan on TV and playing for a championship if they're unbeaten. So that's something to chew on a bit. And I'm interested, too, where you're at as a Nebraska fan with your investment with this Nebraska football team. So I know this to be certain. I think most of you like Rhule. I think most of you respect Rhule. And every time Rhule talks on camera or on sideline that's released a week later, he wins you over. It's not just his words, but what the team's doing. They're winning. And they're not always winning pretty, which is a prerequisite in the Big Ten. You got to win ugly. But how many of you feel like Dave? Dave chimes in here on the stream, and Dave says this and asks this question. This talk about maybe going or being bowl eligible this weekend. I want to be like Fox Mulder. I want to believe. But I feel like Charlie Brown. I'm waiting for Lucy to yank the football away like she has the last 6 years. That's so accurate. And listen, I think you're going to see a wave of hope and optimism like you haven't seen. Nebraska football and the Nebraska fan base was on fire in a great way in 2016 when you started unbeaten, and then you went and played well at Wisconsin. You lost in overtime, but it came crashing down in Columbus, and then you limped to the finish. I think you've got something built to last, and I know we're only 8 games into the Rhule era. But this team's tough. This team's physical. Vogel nailed it with how they're making meals, Elijah, with some limited groceries. And they do have some great groceries. When you look at that defensive side of the ball and the young kids, they're really in tune with some of their talents and specialties. They're turning to it and letting them go play. Nebraska's finding ways to win ball games, not only despite themselves, but because of also what they've gotten better at. You've got a developer, and you've got a guy that has an eye for talent. So the question is this. I think if we're going to put percentages on it, you as a Nebraska fan are what, 70, 60% still worried about Lucy pulling the football away? You don't want to get your hopes up too much? I don't blame you. I don't know how the hell Saturday is going to go. I kind of have a gut, My gut's been wrong from time to time. I'm also winless on the road. So there's a little superstition there. So I think you can believe but still be cautious. You can have two different things and still be excited for Rhule. You know what the short term is, go play football. Don't beat yourself. Nebraska's still trying to do that. It's still a little bit of Nebraska v. Nebraska, Elijah, and it's still Nebraska v. the opponent. The difference is you got a defense that has got the old mop bucket. You were, or maybe you knew the kid who puked in third grade. Everyone ran and hid. Here came the janitor, the elementary school janitor, to clean it up and get everything all nice and tidy again. That's been Nebraska's defense. I think Nebraska's a year away, clearly, a quarterback away, clearly, but I think their intent is going to win some ball games in the Big Ten, and it better be ready a year from now for another November.
And I think there's a more tangible reason than just, well, they have the intent. They have a head coach that knows how to motivate them. Their mindset is shifted. There's a more tangible reason, I think, that you have to worry less this season about Lucy pulling the football away. And that's the defense.
They've won?
The defense. Think about it. When you compare it to years past, what Nebraska has this year is a side of the football, a unit that you can turn to when the going gets tough, and you have confidence that they're going to go out there and make a play. And I'll phrase it to you in a simple way. If on Saturday Nebraska has a 7-point lead with 2.5 minutes left, Michigan State has the ball in their own 15, what is your confidence level that Nebraska's defense is going to stop Michigan State short of a touchdown? Based on what I have seen since the Michigan game, my confidence is at an 8.5, a 9. Obviously, football happens and weird stuff happens in the game of football, but based on what that defense has showed me, they are a group that you can turn to when the going gets tough, and in the big-time moments, they go and make big-time plays because they have big-time players. That's what the defense is right now, and that's more tangible than saying, well, Matt Rhule knows how to motivate him. Matt Rhule's flipped their mindset. This is a team that has intent and knows what the mission is. All those things I believe are true, but the tangible reason why I think there can be more confidence in this football team to get to 6 wins, to go take down Michigan State, to go make a run at a Big Ten West title, is just how dominant that defense has been and how much it feels like this Husker team can trust them in big-time moments to go out and make a play.
Here's the reality. As good as this defense is, as the who cares mentality that exists, they're going to face a better talent level Saturday than the last 3 teams they were able to, by their own doing, escape from. They're able to turn and go 3 and out. As we get to November, aside from Iowa's offense, everyone else could sting Nebraska's defense. Nebraska can't keep being perfect on defense. That's too much of an ask. We'll wind down hour 1 next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Reno's East is where we are at. Roadshow Thursday, we're in East Lansing. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Also powered on the road. Big thanks to Sauter Heyman and your friends at Lazari's. Appreciate you guys helping make this happen. So Moonbot chimes in on choice of band. I've got to address what Skurs Talk asked about here in the stream, and watch the show. The video's up as we are streaming live as well as on the radio, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. So Skurs Talk, did we refer to our defense as Joe Dirt cleaning up the puke in the lunchroom? No. I said, yes, Nebraska's defense has had to be a janitor. And maybe I had a family member, Ralph, when he was in 3rd grade, and is still embarrassed about that moment. Nebraska is doing the Lord's work, the defense. Okay. That's what I mean. That's what I'm absolutely referring to. They have been put in awful situations. We kind of detailed the stop rate yesterday, Elijah, with just how well Nebraska's performed. They go back to the Northwestern game. most Nebraska teams have been down 21 or 17-0. So I'm complimenting the defense, but thank you for checking me, Skurstock. Appreciate it. Who's on the line?
We got Pete on the phone lines with us.
Pete, go for it. Thanks for calling.
How you doing today?
We're good. We're in colorful East Lansing.
Cool. I guess my perception is I think this team has more accountability and expectations from the coaching staff. And I really do believe it started in the fall when he started doing the four-corner drills and getting everybody to practice and participate. It's really paid off on backups coming into the game and performing. I think Matt Rhule's doing a real good job. You know, football is almost half mental, and I think he's working on the mental all year long, and I think it's going to come around. Turnovers have got to stop, though, because that will kill you. If you get by 2 games with 4 turnovers, great, we won, but it will catch up, and so that has to get better. The other thing is I think the special teams this year is done okay. I mean, they haven't really hurt the team, and they've been somewhat of a plus, and the puntings have been real good, and everything in football is about field position and blocking and tackling. So whether they win or lose, I don't know. It all depends on how they play, how they perform, but I think the future looks pretty bright.
Pete, appreciate it. Yeah, field position's key. There's a run on Dave Matthews hate right now, and all of you stop with the Dave Matthews Band hate, as some of us have seen 15 of his shows. As Dion says, that's white old man music. Pretty good.
I'm holding my tongue here. I'm holding my tongue.
Coach Rhule's a big-time Dave Matthews guy. I love Dave Matthews. It's the acoustic Moonbot. If you're going to spend it, go see him doing acoustic sets. We'll hear from Tim Brando. He'll be part of the broadcast. He'll be doing the play-by-play for FS1. Coming up here Saturday from East Lansing, get his take on the Bob Knight legacy and his take on Nebraska v. Sparty, as we are here at Reno's East in East Lansing Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow, powered by your friends at Sauter Heyman and Lazari's. And grab yourself a Cornhead Lager while you're at it.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're on the road here at Reno's East, and excited to be here in East Lansing. Hope you're all doing well. We'll have so many different appearances for you coming up. Tomorrow, we'll be at the Graduate in East Lansing, and we'll be at Spartan Stadium. Coming up here on Saturday, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, the Spartan coaches shows following us here at Reno's East. A man that'll be doing the game on FS1, legendary broadcaster Tim Brando, joins us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Tim, thanks for squeezing us in. I know you're headed up to East Lansing. How are you? Thanks for the time.
I'm good. I'm already there or here. Got here a little earlier today, and yet you're right. I'm squeezing a lot of different media platforms in today. There's a little bit going on in college football, and, of course, the passing of Bob Knight. There's been just a lot on the docket. I did manage to squeeze in my paperwork on my boards, and tomorrow I'll be visiting with all of the coaches with both teams. So long but fun day, and we go back at it. This time I actually do an early game, and we've been doing so many games on the West Coast. It's kind of comforting to not have to worry about catching a red eye back from either Portland or San Francisco or Seattle or Salt Lake City. So it's good to be back in the Big Ten.
Well, good to have you, Tim. And we spoke in August, and you're a Rhule guy. You believe in what he's doing. We'll get there in a minute. I know you're on a shot clock. So Bob Knight is what to you? You had a chance to do a lot of his games. You also had a chance to spend time with him.
Well, he was memorable. The one word, memorable. You're dynamic and a guy that, in a lot of ways, because of where I was in my life and as a broadcaster at that time in my youth, I first came across him in 1981 at the Final Four as a 25-year-old covering LSU and Dale Brown, who, of course, would later be one of his great rivals throughout both of their tenures. And you couldn't have two guys that were more polar opposites than those two guys. Knight won those games, but in a lot of ways, Dale, because of my incredible close relationship with him, I became sort of a translator for both of them, because they were at each other's throats. And I tried to get both of them to see, the other's strengths, not just their weaknesses, but, they just were not built the same way at all. And I will say this about Bob Knight. I did see the good, the bad, and the ugly of him. But his ugly, in a lot of ways, the bullying and the belittling of others to try to run over them to some extent, was a way to see if you might be up to graduating to the next level. I think he definitely used that to test his players. I think he utilized that in most of his relationships. And I got a little bit of a head start on Coach Knight. After that 81 Final Four, I had the good fortune of meeting my idol, Kurt Gowdy, a man who mentored me as a broadcaster, and at the Final Four in 82. And Kurt and our relationship was just incredible. But Bob Knight also loved Kurt Gowdy, and that became a common bond because through Kurt Gowdy, Bob Knight got to meet his hero, Ted Williams, who was his all-time favorite player, the great hitter with the Boston Red Sox. And they did a few American Sportsmen together and whatnot. And I remember Gowdy talking to me as I was with him at the Final Four in 82, and I talked to him a little bit about my experiences watching Coach Knight and being there for that first Final Four that I covered in 81. And he told me, Tim, Bob is a complex man. If you have the opportunity, and I'm sure you will, to call some of his games one day, remember this. He will try to run over you. And when he does, when he meant that, he meant emotionally. He said, you've got to stand up and chirp back. Make sure that you let him know that you will not cower to him. Well, it just so happened in 1986 and 87, I did several of his games. First one was with Notre Dame, at Notre Dame. And then in 87, getting ready to do a game in the Big Ten, I had done the Michigan game on a big Monday with Dick Vitale. And the following week, I was doing a game at Bloomington, and the very next week. And he had apparently overheard something that he felt that I had said on the telecast the prior week that was wrong. He got it secondhand. But he at his practice, I was told practice was open. I walked in for the practice, and he said, and I kid you not, get the blank out of here, you miserable, no-good blank. This practice is not open to the likes of you, and you can get your blankety blank out of here, and I don't want to see you again until game time. And because of my conversation with Mr. Gowdy, I stood up from the press row area where I was sitting, and I said, well, don't worry, you miserable blank. I don't need to see your blanking practice anyway. You run the same blank anyway. No one ever learns anything coming to one of your blanking practices. And I just walked out. I went back to the hotel.
How'd that go? How'd that go after that?
I went to the hotel. Now, I'm 31 years old at the time, okay? I'm still a burgeoning broadcaster, doing well at ESPN, but still in my youth. And I was emotional afterwards because I really did feel that he defamed me, and I did have to fight back. But in order to do that, I had to summon a lot of inner strength, and I felt like I, in some ways, went to his level by screaming back and whatnot. But I did. I did exactly what Kirk told me to do. And I went to the hotel. I saw Vitale, and you know how Dickie V felt about Bob. He just idolized him. He guffawed all over him on the air. And he was like, Bob, Robert Montgomery Knight is the all-time greatest, blah, blah, blah. I said, Dick, I don't want to hear it. Okay? I just went through a moment with him that I would just as soon like to forget. And he could see I was emotionally upset. I mean, almost in tears, really. And Dick said to me, Timmy, he's just testing you. Okay? You watch. We get to the game. We get to the game tonight. That was at the shoot-around where it happened. We get to the game. He's going to come over. He's going to pat you on the butt. He's going to let you know that everything's okay, that you passed the test. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We get to the game. We're doing our on-camera right before the tip. And the team in those days had to come right past where we were broadcasting from, doing our on-camera. And Bob walked right by me with the program folded in his hands, just as he always had it, patted me on the butt, and while Vitale was talking, he put his arm on my left shoulder and squeezed it, and then I turned and looked at him, and he gave me a wink and a thumbs up as if to say, you passed the test, we're good. And from that moment forward, Bob Knight treated me with nothing but respect. It was incredible. Just absolutely incredible. Exactly what Gowdy had told me could possibly happen and did, and what Vitale had said to me he was, in fact, doing and would do, he did. So there you have it. And through the years, what I learned in basketball from him, what I learned in some ways about life, because we reminisced a great deal, especially in his years at Texas Tech. By this time, I'd gone to CBS and been in the business 25 or so years. And Bob had great respect for the success that I'd achieved. And he would come on my radio show and tell all kinds of stories, including the ones with Gowdy and the American sportsman trips up to Snake River and, fly fishing and all the different things that Kurt would take him to, and especially the ones that included Ted Williams. And, he was a very well-read man, very intelligent on a lot of different fronts. And we actually did talk about his rivalry with Coach Brown, who he knew I loved. But he understood that I wouldn't forgive him for some of the things that he did and said. But he also was unapologetic about the way he was treating other coaches. He would never go to a point where he would say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. That's the one flaw I think that he could never quite overcome, and it raised its ugly head a few times on him after he and I had become close. That's just the nature of the man. He was very complex in a lot of different ways, and while his temper did get the best of him many times, I will say this to you, he also did an incredible number of great things for people that no one knew about, and he didn't want them to know about, okay? Mm-hmm. There was a softer and certainly a charming side to Bob that people, he didn't want people to see or understand, but years later, even his situation with Coach Krzyzewski was another example of that in the 90s after they met in the Final Four in 92, where they sort of had a parting of the ways, which was unfortunate. But it was that inability to ever admit that he was wrong or to apologize and be contrite. That was, I think, his greatest flaw. But he was a wonderful man in many other ways, and all of us that got to know him, I think, were better for it.
It's Tim Brando with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, remembering the late, great Bob Knight. And Tim, there was a quote from Bob Knight from his return to Assembly Hall in front of the Hoosier faithful where he said, whenever I'm done in this earth, I'm paraphrasing for him here, and they bury me upside down so the critics can kiss my ass. And we'll get to that in just a second, because you had a take on Michigan and Harbaugh this morning that drew out your fair share of critics on Twitter. We'll get to that in just a second, time permitting. But first, I need your thoughts on the matchup tomorrow, 11 a.m., at least locally here in Lincoln, Nebraska and Michigan State. You're going to be on the call. Saturday.
Yeah. I hope it's not tomorrow, because I need to talk to these coaches. I'm just glad that Nebraska, it's always good to have a story to tell, and this was a great one to tell for Matt Rhule after a very difficult start, losing your first three, and then sort of going to some extent under the radar with games that did not garner as much attention as those early games did against Minnesota, kind of losing the same way they always had under Scott Frost, and then losing the way they did to Deion Sanders at Colorado. After that, he just went back to the business of doing what's necessary to get the program to win. Made sure that the offense became more control-oriented and control the controllables and not worry about the other things. The defense has really emerged as one of the outstanding defenses in the Big Ten, and that's in keeping with what Matt Rhule is all about. I mean, he's the blueprint for his success at Baylor is what I can see. It's the early stages of that same blueprint is what's transpiring at Nebraska. And, this is, with Michigan State, they're treading water, just trying to find a way to win. And anytime you're playing a team like that that's been hurting and gone through all the different things that they've gone through off the field with the Mel Tucker flap, they're a dangerous club. So, I'm not at all surprised with what Matt Rhule has done. He's truly one of the outstanding college football coaches in America, and he's going to get Big Red back to. Well, we already see the black shirts are returned. Now, give him a year or two to get some recruits in to go along with the portal activity, and Nebraska will be in good shape.
Tim Brando's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Tim and I in East Lansing. Elijah finds his way to East Lansing tomorrow. Tim, I know you got to run. Real quick thought, though, on Harbaugh and your reaction to the coaches on the call with the commissioner. The commissioner, at least per reports from The Athletic, doesn't seem like he wants to do much to Harbaugh in Michigan right now.
Well, why would he? It's not exactly. It's not in his purview. I mean, it's not. And that's the thing that I find really, really. How do I put it? Media mishandling of college football has been going on for a long time. They would prefer these kinds of stories to cover in November rather than actually covering the sport for what it is. Second most popular sport in America. And we're about to get into games in November that people always remember. And what are we talking about? We're talking about this. Why are we doing it? Okay, fine. There's a story there. I get that. But to take it to the extent that they have here is borderline absurd. And it's almost now it looks as though it's being pushed by and I hate to say it because I respect these writers. I do. I mean, I think the world of and certainly was in lockstep with my friend Dan Wetzel with The Death to the BCS, his magnificent book. And I used to have him on all the time because I agreed with all of his thoughts on the godforsaken BCS. But Yahoo and its reporters, whether it's him or whether it's Pat Forty or you take the Ross Dellinger and Pete Thamel now of ESPN.com, I mean, it's a recurring theme now, okay, that, all the athletic directors and all the coaches are really, they're putting the commissioner of the Big Ten, the new commissioner, on trial. He could be losing some of those guys as people that he needs support from. Huh? What? He doesn't need the athletic directors and coaches to be his friend. He serves at the pleasure of the president of the university. That's how this works. Okay, the coaches and the ADs, they're important, and he wants to have relationships with them, and he needs them to be good. But in this situation, in this scenario, the presidents are who he has to be concerned with, and as long as those presidents have empowered the NCAA, and that's what's going on here. The NCAA, in my opinion, should have no jurisdiction whatsoever over college football, but does because the presidents want to utilize them as this, borderline weak, led by a horrible district attorney police force that decides to, whenever it's in their best interest, to enforce some infractions, and then other times they choose not to. College football does need to get away from the NCAA, and I sincerely hope that stories like this help make that happen, because we need to govern this sport from within, not with the NCAA's help. The NCAA has had an axe to grind with college football since it lost the television rights and all the revenue from it way back in 1984. That was a generation ago. I was just breaking into the business at that time. That's the reality. But in the world we live in today, okay, unless Michigan already had a notice of allegations, which it does not have, unless the NCAA had all the evidence that they deem necessary, which apparently they don't, the notice of allegations, the letter of allegations would have gone out. It has not. The moment those allegations, that the notice of allegations gets to Michigan, when and if that happens, there's a 90-day clock that begins for the school in question to answer, from a legal standpoint, the allegations brought by the NCAA infractions and enforcement committees. Well, that hasn't even started yet. So nothing's going to be done during this football season. And I dare say, be done before the start of next football season. So why make this your cause celeb, which apparently is what's going on now? I think it's another level of embarrassment from the standpoint of a media that has allowed itself to be manipulated through back channeling of leaks coming from the NCAA, because they're too cowardice to come forth themselves and be transparent, or they haven't done enough homework, and they need the homework to be done by these award-winning writers. Hell, just go ahead and hire those guys. Pay them the money, because your infractions and enforcement committee doesn't know how to get the job done without their help to start with.
Tim Brando with us, FS1, Saturday, Nebraska-Michigan State. Tim, that was on point with the NCAA for sure. We will go ahead.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's not popular always when you just speak objectively and with context. And I used the comparison today of the Cam Newton story in 2010, which was not about spying, but it was about having a player that had been bought and paid for, sold really by his father during a different time. And the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, who was a former judge and in fact the Bruce Pearl case for the NCAA, everybody thought Mike Slide would come down on Auburn. What did he do? He protected Auburn. He made sure that those coaches kept their mouths shut, didn't meet with anybody, didn't talk with anybody, and forged through the NCAA. He found some loopholes to make sure that Cam Newton's eligibility would not be questioned. Auburn went on to win a national title during a time in which the Southeastern Conference was growing to dominate the sport, winning 7 national championships in 8 years with 4 different schools. So anyone thinking that the commissioner of the Big Ten is going to step in place of the NCAA to say, oh, this is it, Michigan, you can't compete in the college football playoff, better think again.
Tim, we will see you Saturday in the press box. Can't wait for your call, and always love having you on with Hail Varsity. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Thank you, fellas. It was my pleasure.
Tim Brando with us on Hail Varsity. Good to spend a few minutes with him. We are going to do our best break-wise to fix that, or is it fixable? So we're saying we're sorry, but that was incredible content, and Tim went off.
That was good stuff from Tim. And just to let you know, Schmidty, we're just going to roll forward until the end of our 25 to 38 segment. So we're rolling forward here.
Sure.
I will do some hard conversations with the bosses. I will call them up after the show. We'll get that figured out. But as you said, that is the price I'm willing to pay, because Tim Brando is just that good and generous enough to give us 20 minutes of his time. He's an extremely busy guy, so we tip our cap to Tim Brando for even doing that. We will happily make the necessary adjustments to make that work, because Tim is just fantastic.
Big thanks to Tim Brando. Incredible insight on Bob Knight, his time with Bob Knight. Incredible insight with what he thinks about Nebraska-Michigan State and covering college football as long as he has. 489-1240. 489-1240, the number to get in. on Hail Varsity. We're going to move Coach Barnett back to 5:40. We'll spend some time with Coach Barnett at 5:40, get his take on this Harbaugh situation and Nebraska. We'll get that handled. Interested to figure out where you're at on a couple of different levels. One, the long and short is the coaches are ticked off, the ADs are ticked off, and the commissioner has not acted. All right. And Tim Brando's right. The only one that's going to make the commissioner do anything is the chancellors and presidents. And, Fox TV, your biggest partner that's handing billions and billions of dollars. If you got someone that's in a playoff run at a championship, you're going to spank them after. All right. Well, go enjoy prom, but you're grounded tomorrow. Right. I mean, that's how this thing's going to shake out on the Michigan front. With Nebraska, the here and now, some really good comments in the stream. And, there's some points made about trust. And I'm interested here. Saturday, if Nebraska gets out of Dodge with a win, Elijah, does that trust factor go up? Yes. But does it undo missteps that weren't under rules watch? Are you willing as a Nebraska fan to emotionally invest again? And you financially and emotionally invested, you do it, but you're more cautious. And there's been cautious optimism for a while. And you were on fire and ready to go. Minnesota, man, not again. Then Colorado, what the hell? And Nebraska's crawled back and fought back and figured out how to win with a great defense and some splash plays on offense and physical play on both lines of scrimmage. You win in East Lansing to kick off in November. You would like to think if the guys stay focused and keep doing their job that Maryland could be a win as well. And then you got something going because you head to Wisconsin and you end with Iowa. And the West is within your grasp. You got to handle Saturday. You're going to have to handle next Saturday. You're going to have to probably go 3-1. Hell, you might have to win out. I don't know. I haven't thought about what perfect October and November looks like. I haven't let my brain drift there. But from a trust standpoint, man, you've had pats on the back for 3 straight weeks with a little criticism mixed in on fumbles. You've seen the defense continue to ball out. Can they stay at this level? And you win. I think if you're a Nebraska fan, yeah, your admiration will continue to grow. But the trust part is so key because it's been a long and damaged history of my dad used to say a lot of things that makes me smile when I think of him. But what truer words were never spoken, and this was 1996. This was Arizona State. This was Nebraska had won 25 games in a row, and Nebraska goes down to Arizona State, number 1 team in the country. They just dismantle Saban and Michigan State. Scott Frost is starting. Amon Green looks great. You got the Peter boy. You got Christian and I should say you have Jason and Wistrom, and Farley was out because of suspension, but that doesn't matter. Well, Arizona State won 19-0. Dad's sitting down. He's pouring me a beer. He's like, just when you fall in love with Nebraska football, it will kick you in the ass. And there's that feel that there's been a lot of kicks in the butt, or earlier stream comment, Lucy pulls a football away. Saturday may make you feel good. If they go, Elijah, if they go play well and like convincingly win, that's also on the table. I think you feel really good. That's, yeah, you're supposed to, but you're not quite sure if that can happen with Nebraska football through all you've been through.
And we'll get to Nebraska's schedule here a little bit later in the show as that comes out for 2024, but I think that's somewhat relevant here in discussing Nebraska, the respect factor, I guess, because that's what Husker fans ultimately want. The feel I get from them is Husker fans ultimately want to be respected by their Big Ten foes, and they ultimately want to be respected by national media, folks around the country. That's what Husker fans want right now. It doesn't have to be a national title. It doesn't have to be a Big Ten title. You want to be respected. You want teams, whenever they look up their schedule and they see Nebraska on their schedule, they go, okay, buckle up. Nebraska's coming to town or we're going to Nebraska. That's going to be a hell of a game. That's what Husker fans want. And thus far, since the Michigan game, Nebraska has beaten the teams that it is supposed to beat. Maybe they haven't beaten them over the past 5 years, but the likes of Illinois, in Northwestern, in Purdue, those are teams Nebraska is supposed to beat. Michigan State is a team that's lost 6 straight. That's one that Nebraska is supposed to go win. Maryland, I know they're better this year, but they've lost some suspicious games, and ultimately they're Maryland. That's a game you're supposed to go win. If you want to earn respect, and this is where I get into the 2024 schedule where people look at the back half of that schedule and there's some fear from Husker fans. If you want to earn respect, you want to be a program that people around the country look at and go, that's a damn good football team, which is all Husker fans I think really ask for. You have to beat the teams that are respected. Wisconsin, traditionally, over the past 10 years, is respected. That's why people are giving Luke Fickell in Wisconsin their preseason Big Ten West vote. I think Wisconsin's going to win the West. It's because people respect what Wisconsin is, what Wisconsin does, and what Luke Fickell did at Cincinnati. Because Luke Fickell beat a whole bunch of teams that people respected. Iowa, through the years, under Kirk Ferentz. They've beaten a hell of a lot of teams that people respect. People respect the hell out of Kirk Ferentz. Brian Ferentz, that's a different story because his offense hasn't quite lived up to that. His offense hasn't gone and put up big numbers on defenses that people respect. That's why people don't respect Brian Ferentz. But at the end of the day, if people want Nebraska to be respected, you have to go beat the teams that people nationally in the Big Ten, however you want to quantify it, the teams that people respect. And that's not going to happen until the end of the month if you're Nebraska. So what do you have to go do? You have to go do your job against Michigan State. Michigan State's a team that you should be beating, not only this year, but in a lot of years if you're Nebraska when you compare the resources and the fan support of Nebraska to Michigan State. Same story with Maryland. So if Husker fans want that respect, and you look ahead to 2024, when you look at a back half of the schedule that includes 3 straight at Ohio State, home against UCLA, at USC, those are the teams that people respect in this country right now. And if you want to earn respect, if you want Matt Rhule to get his national flowers for the rebuild job he's doing at Nebraska, those are the games you have to go win. Wins are great, yes, but there's a different level to beating a Ohio State, a USC, a Wisconsin than there is to a Northwestern or an Illinois.
There's absolutely tiers, right? And Elijah, that's a money take. That's an incredible take. And it goes into the trust. You can trust the football team. If they win the games, they're supposed to win. You can trust the football team if they do 50-50 in those ranked matchups, or if you go get a solid road win. And it's been forever. This is a game that Nebraska typically has lost. I mean, it would be fitting for how Nebraska football is gone to lose to a team that's lost 6 in a row. But this is a different, well, I guess we'll see. Is it a different Nebraska? And I think they are a different Nebraska based on what they've adapted to do and how well the defense is playing. Kent emails in, Rhule has made headway with games that would previously have been lost, which we haven't understood for years, and that's a big step. But the use of the portal was fairly horrendous. Your number one target is a gigantic fear, and will never take another step, take another snap from center. Yeah, you've got to, if you're going to go portaling, you got to be better with your hit rate. But it's not been all misses, but you're not relying on a lot of the portal guys. That's fair to say, at quarterback specifically. Yeah, that's a criticism. That's for sure. You know what he did, though? He said, all right, Heinrich, get ready. What do you do well? You run the option well. Sweet. We're going to run the football with you, son, and do some play action. We're going to move Sat to the box. So he sees the thing a little bit better. So, no, but the trust and respect part, yeah, I think there's some obvious respect for how Nebraska's responded, Elijah. And they've won some games that we all think, all right, Nebraska could have lost that and has lost that a lot of years in a row. But now it's a little bit different. You're not going to get a ton of respect nationally if you go in Saturday. You may not even get a ton of respect locally around the state. Other than, all right, this is a nice change, but you're supposed to do it. You're still in that supposed to do it mode, even though it's not been done for years.
Yes, it's going to be that if Nebraska wins on Saturday, it's going to be Matt Rhule's finally gotten Nebraska back to a bowl game. Awesome. They're still not good, but at least they made a bowl game. They're moving in the right direction. If you want to get that respect,
they're not bad anymore.
Yes,
that's the difference.
If you want the respect, you have to beat the respected teams. Michigan State's not respected. People just say, "Good win, you're bowl eligible, awesome."
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Hail Varsity Radio rolls forward. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're at Reno's East. Here in East Lansing, up a day early. The fall colors in full effect. It is just glorious. Going to be a good ball game Saturday, tight ball game possibly. The man on the play-by-play of it is Tim Brando. He kicked off hour 2. Brandon Vogel was with us in hour 1. We're at the Graduate East Lansing tomorrow, 4 to 6 Central Time, and then we're live from Spartan Stadium for the weekend edition. 7 to 9 a.m. Central, and then Real Red Reaction follows immediately after Nebraska-Michigan State. Can Nebraska keep it on? That's the question. We get into the nerves and the feels by a lot of the Nebraska fans, many of you that have chimed in on the StreamYard, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel or Hail Varsity Radio Twitter is where you can find and follow. Brian chimes in, there's a pride in developing into a big dog that can take on all comers. There's no pride or valor just being a dog that has to pick on little dogs so they can feel like they are a big dog. And Elijah was just on point last segment with the respect factor here. The trust comes kind of at the same time the respect does. But it's still going to be a big deal when Matt Rhule gets this football team to win 4 in a row in the Big Ten. You shouldn't roll your eyes at it. You shouldn't. Dabo's had a lot of expectation talk versus appreciation talk this week down there in South Carolina. I think there are always going to be those expectations for Nebraska fans with some of the schools that you're supposed to beat by rolling the old brand and helmet out. That has changed. Trev Alberts knows that. But the appreciation will be there Saturday if Nebraska gets it done. I think Nebraska fans absolutely appreciate the defense going out and just telling Northwestern to go to their room when they started the ball on the 13-yard line. I think Nebraska fans appreciate how it looked like it was going to go against Purdue. Now can Nebraska gut out another one Saturday in a game that Vegas calls 3 points? You know, Elijah, that respect and trust will continue to build in 2023. However this season ends, if you end up in Indy, if you end 3-1, if you go 2-2, you're still going to be bowling. Okay, that's the main thing. If you're Nebraska,
well, don't count your chickens before they're hatched.
They're going to win one of their final 4.
Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. We talked about the Lucy pulling the football away.
I'm gonna count my chicken before it's hatched. They are going to win at least one football game. So let's go into the schedule drop. And you want to talk about fun, November's to remember. How about the final rundown for the Big Red? As the Big Ten says, Nebraska, Wisconsin, no soup for you, babe. As welcome to the expanded Big Ten is going to be difficult. We all kind of marveled at the 2021 schedule, but it was fun. And it would have been a hell of a lot funner if Nebraska had beat Michigan in 2021, because then you're in the thick of it. Welcome to a wild card team from the AFC West at 8-8 or 9-7. Can you just survive to be in the top half of the Big Ten and then build to be a third or second place team in the Big Ten? If you're first in the Big Ten, you're going to win a national championship. to get through this conference. It's like John Cook getting through volleyball. That's how loaded the conference is. It's turned into that way with football. But how does this grab you? Ohio State in Columbus, the 26th. UCLA, the 2nd of November, a year from today. The Trojans come to town November 16th. You're hosting Wisconsin. You're at Iowa. Ohio State, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Iowa to close next year. Coach Rhule, good man. God love you. Get them ready for a year from now, not just 1-0 each week. You better be ready. If you split that stretch, that's incredible. That's my early reaction.
But look at the first 7. And if Matt Rhule has this thing moving in the direction that he wants it, you get some of these freshmen making plays.
You're 7-1 going to Columbus, baby. 8-0 going to Columbus. I'm getting it way in front of my mouth.
7-0. Because you got Texas El Paso at home. No offense to Texas El Paso at home. If Nebraska loses that game, I will find a new job. I will not continue working this job anymore. That would just be ultimate disaster. Then you say it now, but you'll come on back. Then you have Colorado at home. That's going to be a fun one. There's going to be some venom at Memorial Stadium based on how things went last year with the disrespect card. That's an interesting one, but it should be a winnable game for Nebraska if Nebraska's moving in the right direction. Northern Iowa, winnable football game. Illinois, you're ahead of where they are right now. Bielema obviously builds up into success, and this was a building year for sure. We'll see where they're at next year, but Nebraska's building this year too, and I think they're in an upward trajectory. At Purdue, your first road test. That's a good first road test to have, Purdue. It's pretty clear, based on what we saw last week, Matt Rhule and his rebuild is further ahead of where Ryan Walters is at with his culture shift at Purdue. Rutgers, back at home. And then you're at Indiana. Indiana might have a new head coach next year based on how Tom Allen's been performing this year. There's a very real possibility 6-1 or 7-0 isn't crazy to think to start off the year. And this is us thinking way too far ahead here. We don't know what the offseason looks like, but we're projecting Nebraska's build.
You're going to need another quarterback in the quarterback room.
Yeah, you are. And that's why it's a talk that is further away. But the possibility is there. Will Nebraska at 7-0, if they do reach that point, have respect nationally? They might be in the top 25. They might be in the top 25, but nobody's going to look at that Nebraska squad based on where they've been over the past damn near a decade and say, that Nebraska squad's dangerous. Everyone's going to say, well, we'll see what happens whenever they go on the road to Columbus and go play Ohio State. And that's what I was getting at last segment in terms of respect. You need to go take on the big dogs. That's why Nebraska needs to be in the Big Ten moving forward. People are scared of the last couple games of the schedule.
Yeah, I love this schedule. Exactly. It absolutely makes you be worth a damn in the world of college football. You either if you die, you die, or if you live, you live. And you're going to live and die each week. And college football is going to turn into the NFL, where it's not 13-4, but you get what I'm saying. You're going to have a lot of 9-3 teams in the playoff. Mm-hmm. That's all right. That's how it's going to be. And you'll adapt accordingly. And occasionally you'll have a 1972 Miami Dolphins squad, but probably not. So this is great. And if you're a season ticket holder, God, that's awesome with that schedule you got coming to town. And the schedule that we go on road trips. We pick 3 a year. Thanks to your friends at Sauter, Heyman, and Lazari's, we get to go on 3 a year.
I'll see y'all in LA. I'm going. One way or another, I'm going to LA to watch Nebraska USC. Before we get out, Schmidty, the best take of all takes comes from Brendan in the stream. Can we just give a round of applause, not opening with a Big Ten foe next season?
Yeah, it's different. It's weird. Although I'd take USC under the lights in August.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here in Reno's East. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. It's Hail Varsity, as we're powered by Corn-Fed Lager and our friends at Sauter, Heyman, and, of course, Lazari's helping power the road show as we're in East Lansing. Right now, the Spartan Coaches Show is going on in the dining room just across from me. Our friend Jack Ebling setting this up. Jack was telling me a story about how Judd Heathcote, the legendary Spartan coach, got him in with Bob Knight. Jack had Coach Izzo on a little bit earlier on his radio show, and he told the story about how, and you just heard Tim Brando, his first introduction to Bob Knight, how Dirty Bob went off on Tim Brando to test him, to belittle him, to bully him, to just be Bob Knight. And you heard Tim Brando's response and how he grew from it. Similar to Jack. Jack's like, well, a guy named Pete Newell, that's who Bob Knight worshipped in the coaching world, was talking to him yesterday. He said to come on by. Oh, okay. Then it's okay. So a lot of similarities there. I love listening to Coach Leach talk about his time with Bob Knight, and because Patrick, Bob's son, was at Tech while the Pirate was down there, and they go to the salad bar together. Imagine the Pirate and Bobby Knight at the salad bar together, debating on green or black olives. It must have been a party, but no, lots of football though. Tim Brando, incredible. We'll have that posted on the pod, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Tim Brando goes off on the NCAA and just what Michigan's going through. And a lot of you are irate about Michigan, and I hear that side of things too. We talked 2024 schedule. We talked November schedule, Nebraska and Michigan State. Brandon Vogel of Counter Read was with us. So a loaded show today. Gary Barnett also checks in his take on the Harbaugh situation, Nebraska Sparty, and all that goodness. So a lot going on. But graduate tomorrow, 4 to 6 Central. And at Reno's East is awesome. Really an awesome town, Elijah. This is fun. East Lansing's a good spot. Excited for you to get up here tomorrow.
I'm excited. It's been another night on the floor of Schmidty's hotel room. That's going to be good stuff on a Friday. And then I
sound like the biggest pinky in the air a-hole there is. All right, I'm making Elijah drive up. I'm making Elijah sleep on the floor. I'm making Elijah turn into a Sherpa and carry all this equipment. No. Elijah's choosing to drive.
This is true. I looked at flight prices and I said, hell no.
Elijah's choosing to sleep on the floor. I didn't say, hey, let's shack up. I said we can get a couch or a rollaway, or we'll play paper, rock, scissors, and I can sleep on the floor.
There's a reason. I bring my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad everywhere. It's always in the trunk of my car.
Listen, I offered the room because it's either Elijah's going to go camp somewhere in the wilderness and some hitchhiker's going to get loose, or, hey, do you want to stay in the room? You want some warmth?
Camping in the woods sounded fun. I was kind of down for it, but I'll take the hotel room. Thank you.
Well, reminder to you, eyes and hands straight on the wheel. The driver has one job to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Back tomorrow at 4 from East Lansing.